wake up and learn the true history of slavery, because that wasn't exactly a white men sport, okay? Jewish people were the ones that were trading us. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade. They've buried a lot of it, but it's there, and you can find it.
Hello, welcome to the Minor Prophets Podcast. I'm John Mark Baker, and unfortunately, I have to speak about this. I did not want to. I tried to step out of the fray when it comes to this stuff. I thought that maybe I was doing the right thing, but every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in, and that's exactly what's going on here. Candace Owens has let the mask slip entirely. So in her recent episode, she began to go on this anti-Semitic tirade. She was very upset with Ben Shapiro for rightly calling her out, and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly at TPUSA. And, you know, his speech, Ben Shapiro's, was incendiary, but it was appropriate and it was necessary. And I'm glad that he stood up and displayed the courage he did. Obviously, that made Candace Owens mad. She went on this tirade, but she began to speak about Jews in a very concerning way. And here's why I'm addressing this. You know, the Minor Prophets podcast, we really focus on the church. The problem is that Candace Owens' audience is a lot of church people. She has a huge audience from within the church. She's got the #1 podcast in the world, and she is now spewing openly anti-Semitic vitriol that needs to be addressed. And I believe that if pastors do not address this, they are in some ways negligent. I think it is important for shepherds to exercise the authority that they have in order to bring correction in pastoral issues. And this is a pastoral issue. Now, let's look at what Candace had to say.
Questions about who killed Charlie Kirk. And to people that are at home, I implore you to wake up to these people who believe that they are contract lords. I challenge Black Americans to wake up to your true history, because your quarrel is not with white men, okay? Wake up to who publishes these books and keeps us warring with one another. Christians versus Christians, right? Christians versus Muslims.
Right, because book publishing is the thing that is really stirring up the hatred here, not podcasting like she's doing, not these videos that are intentionally geared towards stirring up hatred towards a particular group of people. That doesn't count. It is these book publishers, and we all know who those book publishers are, right?
Wake up and learn the true history of slavery, because that wasn't exactly a white men sport, okay? Jewish people were the ones that were trading us. Jewish people were in control of the slave trade. They've buried a lot of it, but it's there, and you can find it.
Okay, she says Jewish people were the ones in control of the slave trade. That's just not true. Were there Jews that had some hand in the slave trade? Yes, just like there were Africans and Berbers and Arabs, and of course, white Europeans had the majority of the control of the transatlantic slave trade. So to make this claim that Jews were the ones that were really responsible for it is a repetition of Louis Farrakhan's anti-Semitic tirades that he published in his book. It's a book published, by the way, in 1991. She doesn't stop there. She says something else that I think is important to pay attention to.
But the rest of the world can't stand you. You're obnoxious. You have absolutely no values that exist outside of the Talmud.
She's talking about Ben Shapiro here.
You describe yourself as a Talmudic Jew, and I've learned what's in that Talmud, and I encourage other people at home to learn what is in.
Oh, what's this right here? What's this right here? This is the Talmudic Jew that was written by August Rawlings. So I'll let her finish her anti-Semitic tirade, and then I'm going to just maybe do a cursory glance at the Wikipedia page for this author.
That Talmud, so that you know what Ben thinks of you, because he doesn't just hate me, he hates you too, white men. He hates all Black people, okay? If he's following the rules of the Talmud, I mean, when I say hates, they think that we're animals.
Okay, so let's just look at let's just look at this here. So here is August Rolling's Wikipedia page here. It says this: he was a German Catholic theologian, student of anti-Semitic texts, and polemical author. He studied at Münster and Paris and became professor successively at University of Münster, Milwaukee, and Charles University in Prague, and retired in 1901. He wrote polemics against Protestantism, Judaism, and of his anti-Jewish works, Der Talmud Jude, that's the Talmudic Jew, became a standard work for anti-Semitic authors and journalists. It is a faulty abstract of the Indectus Judatum of Johann Andreas Eisenmenger. Now, does the Talmud depict Black people as animals or call Black people animals? Obviously, there are some anti-Black rabbis that you can find throughout history that have said derogatory things about Black people, of course. But is the Jewish faith an anti-Black, anti-white faith? No, it isn't. However, you might be able to find Louis Farrakhan citing things to the contrary. And I would just say, consider the source. Now, why am I talking about this? It is contrary to the gospel of Jesus Christ to begin to imbibe these types of things. Now, Candace Owens used to hide behind, she used to say, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just criticizing the actions of national Israel. And, I think that it is well within bounds to criticize the actions of national Israel if their actions are worthy of criticism. In fact, if you read the Bible, it is chock full of condemnations of national Israel for their actions. It is not incumbent upon the Christian to support every single action Israel ever takes. That's not what the Bible calls us to do, despite some dispensationalists claiming otherwise. But the reality is that's not what Candace is doing. Candace has let the mask slip here. She hates Jews. That's what's going on. And I think for Christians to subject themselves to the ginning up of hatred towards people based solely upon their ethnicity or their religion is absolutely grotesque and against the gospel itself. And by the way, it's the same thing when Donald Trump does that about Somalis, when he calls them filthy, dirty, and disgusting and ridden with crime. I think what he is doing there is something that is beneath the office of the president, and it's also beneath a Christian to engage in that type of rhetoric. We shouldn't be tolerating the demonization of people simply because of what group they belong to, ethnically or otherwise.
Wake up and learn the true history of slavery, because that wasn't exactly a white men sport, okay?
All right. So what is she trying to get people to do? She is actively trying to get Black people to hate Jews because of Jews' role in slavery. She's taking her personal grudge against Ben Shapiro, and she is now trying to export her hatred of Ben Shapiro to now being about Jews. And now she's trying to get you, dear Christian, to join her in her hatred of Jews. She's trying to get you, dear Black person, dear Christian, dear Muslim, to say, oh, here's what's really going on, is the Jews are the ones fomenting the hatred between us. And here's the solution. We need to all hate that group. And that will be where our hatred really lies. But the reality is, any voice that is trying to stir up hatred based on race is demonic. It is evil. It is against the gospel. This is not controversial, and pastors like myself should be speaking up about this issue. This is gaining traction within the conservative movement, and it's gaining traction within the conservative movement in the church, and it's got to stop. This is evil. It is wicked and it is demonic. The mask has slipped. You can't say she's not anti-Semitic anymore. This is anti-Semitism, purely, nakedly anti-Semitism. And Christians should not engage, should not participate. This is gaining traction on the right, and it's got to stop. Now, Candace Owens is stirring this hatred towards Jews less than a week after 15 Jews were slaughtered on a beach in Australia simply because they were Jews and somebody wanted to kill some Jews. That's what happened. That's what happened. Candace Owens is stirring up that hatred. She is stoking that fire within the cultural conversation. Now, Proverbs 6, verse 16 says this: "There are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community." This is Candace Owens. She's a false witness that pours out lies, and she's a person who stirs up conflict in the community. I know that Candace Owens right now is very popular. I'm not going to be very popular for this video amongst some people. Some people are going to praise me. Other people are going to hate me. I don't care. This is where I stand. It is wrong. It's crazy that to say anti-Semitism is wrong is a controversial take in the 2025. It's absolutely insane. But that's where we're at. And unless more shepherds, more Christians raise their voices, use their influence to say, we're not going to tolerate anti-Semitism. And when the people say, well, that's cancel culture, I think that just like a nation needs borders in order to protect itself, so a movement needs borders in order to protect itself from those who would seek to hijack it or subvert it or pervert it in some ways. There's no room on the right for anti-Semitism. There's no room in the church for anti-Semitism. For those who say, "Oh, this is just cancel culture," and we need to resist cancel culture because that's antithetical to true freedom, I say that there's a certain amount of cancel culture that is antithetical to true freedom. But here's what the Bible says about this. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 10, starting in verse 3. "For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedience to Christ." Now, so what's the purpose here? The spiritual warfare that is being waged is against ideas that exalt themselves up against the knowledge of Christ. What is that saying? It's saying that engaging with arguments that exalt themselves up against the knowledge of Christ is spiritual warfare. And Christians, pastors, you who have influence, you have a platform, whatever, it is important. This is spiritual warfare. Telling the truth is spiritual warfare. Speaking the truth in the middle of this is spiritual warfare. We are doing spiritual warfare whenever we are combating faulty arguments that are exalting themselves up against the knowledge of Christ. To allow the church to be infested with ideas through Candace Owens that are ginning up hatred towards Jews, to just allow that to be silent about that, is to abdicate our role as shepherds. I did not want to get engaged with TPUSA versus Candace Owens and the conspiracy theories and the Mormon bee cults and the French legionnaires working with Israel and the CIA. And, it's just like, it's just silly nonsense. It's just QAnon 2.0, and I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But then when Candace Owens accuses pastors of being a psyop from the CIA and then starts to try to subvert people's relationships with the church through her podcast, then she begins to use her podcast in order to try to get people to hate Jews. It needs to be called out. And shepherds, there is a wolf at your door, whether you know it or not. There is a wolf at your door. Her name is Candace Owens. She is speaking directly to the people in your church. And if you are silent about this, if we are silent about this, then we are abdicating our duty as shepherds. Now, listen, I don't want to be part of demonic division. I saw the evil things that were being said about Candace Owens, calling her words that I can't say ever, but especially here on YouTube. Um, I, I don't I don't think that we should allow anger to drive us in any direction. We should not allow rage or hatred to drive us in any direction. Here's the thing. I see, I don't know if you guys watch Star Wars, but what was interesting is the dark side could get people to do the right thing, but out of the wrong spirit, and in so doing, they would be falling to the dark side, right? And I think that's an insightful commentary. We can be so ginned up in righteous indignation that instead of standing for righteousness, we fall prey to the exact same spirit that is at work on the other side. Again, to Star Wars, this is what Emperor Palpatine was doing. He's pulling the strings on both sides of this war so that he can gain authority. And forgive the Star Wars metaphors, but I think that these are apropos. This is what's going on. And I don't think that we as Christians should either be involved in yelling slurs at Candace Owens. We should not be involved in any of that, but we should stand for righteousness when it comes to this. We should stand for righteousness. We should tell the truth. We should not be angry. We should not allow anger to drive us, but we should not give place for anti-Semitism in the church, and we should not give place for anti-Semitism on the conservative movement. We cannot preach the gospel in good conscience to people that we hate just because of where they come from. That's antithetical to the gospel enterprise. And if we are giving our ears to people who are ginning up hatred towards people just because of who they are, we are putting up a barrier between ourselves and the Great Commission, and we don't have the heart of Jesus, who is the one who was crucified for his enemies. He suffered for those who betrayed him because of his love, because of his goodness, because of my sin and yours. His love for us drove him to the ultimate sacrifice. And so any voice that is trying to gin up hatred is antithetical to the gospel itself. We can't do this. We can't give place to this. So I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. I hope you take time to celebrate Jesus, the King of the Jews, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate. He was crucified and he rose again on the third day, and he's coming again to rule over every nation, and every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. And I look forward to that day. I hope you sing some Christmas carols about Jesus, the one who came. I hope that you rejoice in our salvation, and that maybe the Lord will give you an opportunity to share that message of salvation and love to somebody over this Christmas season. God bless you guys, and we'll see you again in the new year.